So, I'm a gamer. Okay, I love video games. I love collecting them, I love playing them, I love just seeing what's out there for all these different systems, all these different generations of games. And they give me an opportunity to escape from my mundane existence, to just go into this other world and be something else for a little while, to be a space marine shooting down evil cuttlefish from another galaxy, to be an Italian plumber fighting off evil fire-breathing turtles and going down pipes that don't lead to the sewer, they lead to some magical world, to be an elf thing collecting golden triangles and trying to save a princess who always seems to save herself, so I don't get the point, to take these toys, these solid toys, and put them into a world where they are animated, where I can control them, where I can send them off to fight Invader Zim. These are all incredibly imaginative worlds made by teams of very creative people who have not only dreamed up what others have never thought of before, but have given it life, given us ways to experience it the way that they've envisioned it, brought it as close to being real as it will ever be. And even the bad games like Superman 64, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Drake of the 99 Dragons, those little tiger electronic games that the nerd like to talk about. Those are still fascinating games. You just want to play them to see how bad they are, how much they could botch them, because it's fascinating. It's fascinating just seeing what worlds have been created, but how good or bad the designers have made them for us to experience. That's one of the reasons why I started this show, to show you just all these different worlds, to show you these different ideas, and even though I haven't really been doing this very long, you could say I haven't really shown you very many games at all, it's still been a lot of fun. Because I feel like I'm throwing in my 2 bits. I feel like I'm giving you my experience, my opinions, my ideas on how this game should go, how it should work. And I've had a lot of fun because no matter how bad they got, I knew that there was still some creativity, some effort to them, some saving grace that made them all worthwhile. Until I found these things! You know how underground game studios will create and release unofficial games for whatever console is out at the time just for a quick buck? Well, there are actually companies that will go one step lower and create these unimaginative cash grabs. Yeah, you thought the Tiger Electronic games the nerd showed off in his video were as low as it got? Hey, at least those were licensed and tested with some imagination as to what the console would look like and play. These don't even have that distinction. Every single one of these is just a cheap cash-in, probably made in a week, designed for the sole purpose of making you think it's the real thing or that you're getting more for your money. I mean, you see this hanging around at a thrift store or some flea market, and it says in big white text, 50 games for only $10. So of course you buy it, thinking that it's full of awesome games that are collections of or tributes to the 8-bit era of gaming, when you're just getting a cheap plastic case with games that assault your senses with a barrage of horrible graphics, music, and gameplay. These are the physical representations of all the laziness and deceit in the world. The complete mockery of everyone who has ever picked up any sort of game and expected fun. The absolute bottom of the barrel of video gaming. They are the bootleg TV games. Now, it's a little hard to define what qualifies as a bootleg, since that term usually makes you think of an almost exact copy of a real system that illegally contains games made by other companies, even though that's not really the case with most of these. In fact, you could say that most of them are sort of original ideas. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to define it as a game that's not meant to be sold mainstream, and was just made to capitalize on some small demand or because another console was selling well and they wanted a piece of the pie. We've already looked at the Guitar Hero clones in a previous episode, and just what a cash-in those were. But guess what? Those were the good rip-offs. The ones that had something to base themselves off of and that could capture at least some of the essence of what made the real games good. But now it's time to go even deeper into the realm of madness and insanity. That's right! It's time to dive into where few people dare to go. Time to open up Pandora's box and see what evils of gods and men emerge from its mouth. Time to read from the Necronomicon and see what otherworldly horrors manifest from its text. Time to awaken the eternally slumbering beast, swim across the river Styx, enter Slender's forest without a flashlight, dive into the ninth circle of hell itself. This is Directed Disaster, and this is the biggest disaster I or any critic will ever conquer, and we're gonna do it right here, right now! So let's play. I should say right off the bat that we're not going to play every single game on every single system I own. Most of these consoles are multi-packs, containing 20, 50, even 100 different games. And since I own about 13 consoles, that's a lot of games. So, for the sake of this video, I'm just going to talk about the consoles as a whole and how they managed to fail so badly, and leave actually playing them to some other idiot who likes to make videos of him freaking out to cheapo games. Hey! First, let's talk about the design. Just look at them! Would you ever look at one of these without knowing beforehand that they're games and go, yeah, not only can I tell this is a console, but it's something I want to buy? They look like third-party Dreamcast or Sega Genesis controllers, like something you'd order off of eBay because you needed a quick replacement and this was the cheapest you could find. But there are a few which go for a different style, like the joystick third. Ah! Too much yellow! Lantern powers fading. The controller layout is basically the same for most of them as well. A directional pad, an A button, a B button, 2 turbo buttons, a start button, and a reset button. Yeah, instead of select or menu, it's reset. They're too cheap to program a menu option, so you have to hard reset every time you want to play a different game. It actually makes me nervous to use it, like I have a chance of corrupting the system's data every time I push the button. Oh, but some of these consoles have select buttons. What do they do? I have no idea. The only good thing I can say about the designs is that, unlike most official plug-and-play games, most of them have 3 RCA cables, allowing me to plug them into both audio plugs on my TV. Okay, how can a flimsy piece of plastic with an outdated circuit board afford 3 cords, but an officially licensed arcade collection can't? It's 2014. You'd think game companies would have caught on to the fact that even travel TVs have stereo now. Also, when you play them for a while, not that you'd want to, they start to heat up and smell like burning plastic. So on top of the already incredibly fragile design it has, it's actually trying to kill itself. Okay, I could go on and on about how badly they screwed up the physical design of these consoles because, believe me, these give me a lot to work with. But I know what you're thinking. Yeah, you actually want me to turn on the Switch and actually show you what's on these consoles. Alright, you asked for it. Okay, plug in the console, turn on the system, and... Yeah, you know you're in trouble when literally the first screen you see after switching on the game causes you pain. First of all, these games have the worst color schemes I've ever seen for anything on Earth. Strawberry Shortcake and friends are looking at these graphics and puking their guts out. The color palette has some weird fetish for hot pinks, dirt browns, bile greens, piss yellows, and a lot of other colors that just hurt to look at. No, seriously, my eyes hurt and I feel nauseous looking at these for only a few minutes. And it makes no sense. I mean, I guess if this was an old cheapo animated film or TV show where they didn't have the budget for a large range of colors, you know, like those old Funimation cartoons, I could understand. But these are games made on a computer, where any 5-year-old can access Microsoft Paint and adjust any color to be the shade they need for their picture to grandma. And it doesn't help that the graphics are constantly flickering, since the game's clipping is horrible. And that's even if you can get them to show up on your TV at all. The consoles are incredibly fragile, with really thin plastic casing and cords that can easily snap. So sometimes it's just a struggle just to get the image to appear on screen. And once you do, you better hope that all the buttons work or the entire system is unplayable. And then the music. It's horrible, but not really in a way I can describe. It has beat, it has relevance, it's not some screeching or gargle mesh of 8-bit sound, but it just sounds so soulless and bland. It's like listening to a kid who's been forced to practice the violin. They're playing the notes you'd expect to hear, but not because they want to. If you go back and listen to Mario or Zelda, you can tell that the composers are trying to create a theme that sticks. Something simple yet memorable that draws you in and makes it more fun to play. This is just the college report you crank out and turn in, not caring about your grade because it's the end of the semester and it's not going to affect your overall average. But not that it matters anyway, because you can't even hear the sound on your TV! Yeah, turn the volume up as loud as you can. The best you can get is this. Anyway, the games. Like I said, each console is a multi-pack containing dozens of different games, but none of them being something you want to play. Each one looks like it was created by a freelance developer with a Commodore 64 in his basement overnight. And even that's being too kind. They're all really poorly made, unoriginal micro games that would have been laughed out of a Super Monkey Ball game. But even that might not have been too bad. If they actually put some halfway decent game genres on here, like a Mario side-scrolling platformer, or a action-adventure game like Zelda or Contra, or, I'll even take wrestling. I'll take one of those wrestling games they pull out of thin air every year. But no, we're not that lucky. No, you want to know what makes up most of the games on all these consoles? Racing and puzzle games. Yeah, take the two most easily abused genres in video gaming and cram about 30 of those games into each of these consoles. And I know that there are fun racing games out there made by game designers with creative ideas, but we're not dealing with Super Mario Kart. No, we're dealing with VR racing, where you're a motorcycle racer dodging other racers and avoiding obstacles to gain points. It's the barest excuse possible for a racing game. Or, if you want something more exciting, then try Lunation, which is just a vertical scroller of the same thing. Except that it's faster, you're given no time to react, and you're lucky if you make it halfway through before time runs out. But if you're in the mood for a puzzle game, then these consoles offer such classics as Wyson, where you just put the shapes where they need to go, or Bubble Blaster. A poor man Zuma. Which really, if you want to play Zuma with a game controller, then go buy Zuma's Revenge for the 360. And yeah, this is basically it across all the consoles. Just a huge melting pot of mediocre games made no better by the control layouts. For some reason, the thinking behind these controllers is that the more buttons they have, the more likely people will buy them. So they'll just add buttons because they can. Like this console, which has both a thumbstick and a directional pad. Now usually on a controller, at least the more modern ones, the thumbsticks control movement while the directional pads control some other function, like quick inventory selection or commanding your troops. In these games, they're both there only to move whatever's on the screen. So what's the point? Why not just have the thumbstick or the directional pad and actually save some money making these? And then there's consoles like the Venture, which thinks it's being cutting edge by putting two shoulder buttons on the top which serve as alternate A and B buttons. But with games these simplistic, there's no reason to quickly change controller layouts. RCA TV Joypad has what could have been an interesting idea with a steering wheel for the vertical racing games that actually works really well. The problem is that for a console that proudly promotes its racing games, it only has 2 games where I can use it, since the majority of the games on this console are mostly horizontal scrollers and puzzle games. Oh, but you want to see the worst offender? This is the Power Drive 30. You think they overthought this a bit? I mean, a steering wheel, pedals, all these buttons on the face. I feel like I'm holding a PlayStation racing controller. You know, the kind that costs $40, you only use once, and then you drop in the nearest donation bin at your local thrift store. It's also supposed to come with a seat, but since mine is missing and I'm too big to fit in it even if I did have it, I have to hold it like this. Oh yeah, this isn't awkward at all, is it? And again, there are very few games where the steering wheel is even used. It's just an elaborate right-left control, so for games like Big Racing, it doesn't do jack. Also, the pedals are just there for decoration, so you have to use the buttons on the top. But even they're inconsistent, since in one game they're gas and brake, while another one has them as gear switchers. For games this cheap and easy, I shouldn't have to write down what each button does for each game. So back to the games. Like I said, there's hundreds of them, and none are done right. You got your racers, you got your puzzle games, you got your platformers, you got your shooters. Yeah, let's talk about the shooters for a minute. For some reason, this is the genre they decided to give the most variety to. Of the handful of sports games and platformers they cranked out for these consoles, most are comprised of just move left and right and collect objects on a single screen, or fire something into a target by just pushing a button at the right time. But for these games, I think they actually covered every base. Horizontal shooters, vertical shooters, carnival shooters, Xevious clones, Space Invader clones, even some bullet hell shoot-em-ups. So they really put a lot of effort and ideas into making this genre the one that stands out the most on any of these consoles. Does that make me happy? No! Because that just reminds me of another collection of crap.
It's another 2D shooter. Nice. Another space shooter. Another space shooter. Another space shooter? Oh, another space shooter? Why, of course. Another space shooter. They should have called this Shooter Games 52. By the way, horizontal 2D space shooter. Next.
And of course the games still suck, especially the Xevious clones. Yeah, I suck at the real game already. How do you think I feel about a game where it looks like they cropped and zoomed in on the screen, making things blurry and even harder to tell what you're doing? Woo! I'm playing Feeding Frenzy with my face right up against the screen. I don't know what's going on, but I know I'm having fun! Woo! And most of these consoles can't even be bothered to program enough games to meet their X and 1 titles, so they just steal games from other systems. Aero Engine has appeared on at least 3 other consoles with no differences, no improvements, just the exact same game. Not that I'm complaining, gives me less I need to play. The titles for these games are the most simplistic you'll ever see. Like, here's a game about pool, which they call Pool Pro. And here's a game about fixing a road, which is called Build Up Road. And then there's a game called Matching Tiles, which is about a space explorer in an animated environment trying to stop an evil blue guy from destroying... Nah, I'm kidding, it's a matching game. But then there are titles that don't make sense or that try to be more epic than they actually are. Like here's Pinball Track. So this is gonna be a pinball game? Nope, it's a maze. And here's Dragonfire. Okay, this sounds like a really fun Atari adventure-like game. But it's actually a clone of Snake. And RB Chess, which you'd think was a chess game, is actually Othello. Or Reversi, I can't tell the difference, I've never played them. And then there's Golden Arrow. Guess what this game is like? No, really, guess. Pause the video and type what you think the game is going to be. Did you do it? Well, if you said it's an Olympic sports archery game, then you're right! And all this does is remind me of how much better Peasant's Quest is. Hell, they're so desperate for ideas, they'll even include copies of games that come bundled with any PC. Like here's Mouse Snare. Okay, the title looks really fun. Looks like we're gonna be chasing after Jerry the Mouse and... Oh, come on! Minesweeper! They put Minesweeper... You can download this for free in the Microsoft Store. And that version's 10,000 times better. But in some cases, it's not a matter of the titles, but the game itself being backcrap insane. So here's a game called Firefighter. You're two firemen trying to save people from a burning building, but the budget for the fire station is so poor that they can't even afford a fire hose. Instead, they have to bounce one of their teammates on the world's bounciest trampoline, and he has to put out the fires with his butt. Oh, and the people he's rescuing apparently have to pay him to save them, because bags of money sometimes fall out of the building and you have to catch them. Geez, I knew Obama's stimulus plan was bad, but I didn't think it would be this bad. Now let's try Birdie Nest. You balance a bird on an invisible line, or maybe it's telekinesis, collecting eggs and avoiding poop piles. Why does this even need to exist? Mowing! Also known as the worst concept for any game ever. I guess they saw the detention minigame in Bully and thought, hey, all the kids are gonna be playing that. Yeah, guess what? It wasn't fun in Bully, and it's not fun here. And then there's Pet Shop. Now going into it, I thought it was a really cheap pet simulator, or a match the item to the customer game or something. But you want to know what it really is? It's a turn-based RPG battle. At least I think it is. You're a cat fighting a dog that looks like the one from Tom and Jerry, and you take turns flinging orbs at each other, but I can't for the life of me figure out how to even attack. It has something to do with the red bar over the cat, but no matter when I stop it, the ball just seems to always miss the dog. Only a few times have I ever managed to score a lucky hit. I mean, would it have taken that many kilobytes to flash an instruction screen for a few seconds to know what the hell kind of buttons you need to push? It's like if I made a game where you're bouncing Popeye on a trampoline, and you have to grab these giant marshmallows with clown faces, and they turn yellow when you hit them, and then they turn black when you hit them, and you can't see anything because the black blends into the background, but you still have to remember where they are. Man, every so often there's a giant teddy bear that falls downward and tries to collect these honeybees that are under the trampoline, and in order to kill it, you have to push all 4 buttons at once, but you wouldn't know that because they never tell you. And so you keep pushing A and B because those buttons, they control these flippers on the other sides of the screen that hit these gumballs that bounce upwards for extra points. And why? Some of the games can't even be bothered to function right. In Elfland, you need to dip yourself in paint to match the color enemy you're fighting, but it's unwinnable since you can't reach the bottom pot. In Push the Ball, which is actually air hockey, the puck never goes at an angle, and you're stuck in a shoving match with a robot until you finally just let him score. Catch the Egg, the second you push a direction, the hand just accelerates to maximum speed and bounces off everything, eventually getting killed by a bomb. An Animal Pool is a dodgeball game, but after you fire the ball and let it come back, it gets stuck for a few seconds before you can fire it again. So on top of being poorly designed, these games were never playtested. The only thing I found on any of these systems that comes anywhere close to me calling a game is this one called Wonder Rabbit. Here you control a rabbit, which looks more like a rejected Pokemon design, in what's actually a fairly decent platformer. You wander from left to right, dodging these things, to find a key and get to the next level. And to do this, you need to switch between 5 different forms, each with their own powers. So there's even an element of strategy, which makes it, dare I say it, actually kind of fun. I mean, sure, the music is solely comprised of a single 8-second loop, the graphics are still blurry and badly colored, and the controls can be pretty jerky, especially when you're trying to switch between forms by pushing A and B at the exact same time. But if you put a gun to my head and said I had to play one of these games until you were happy, I'd steer towards this one. Look, it even has end-level bosses.
Okay, jump up here. Pow. Ow! How did that even hit me? I didn't even see that. Ow! Come on! I just need to shoot the thing and... Come on, get the... Ouch! Okay, let's try that again. Okay, ow! Okay, let's be a little smart. I fell down! How did I fall down? Okay, shoot. Come on, duck. No, it hit me! How did it hit me? Come on, stop dropping. I need to get up there and you flip me again. Okay, I got this time. I got... Ah! 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 Oh. So I should probably stop there because I think I've sledgehammered the point into your minds right now, right? Guess what? I have not shown you the craziest in my collection. Yeah, we're just getting started. You see, there are some developers that this is too hard for. You know, there's some people who think, programming 50 mediocre games in one afternoon is too time-consuming. I think I'll just steal a design and put already existing games in it and make money off of that. Because people are gonna be stupid enough to buy that, right? I mean, I'm gonna make millions! Nobody's gonna know the difference. Ladies and gentlemen, the Power Joy.
Oh yeah, these exist. And yes, they do look just like Nintendo 64 controllers. The guys who made these couldn't even think of an original design, so they just grabbed some controller casings, drilled some new stuff into it, and sold that so people would think it was the real thing. I can't decide if that's lazy or ingenious. So it's basically the same layout as a Nintendo 64, but instead of the C buttons, we have A, B, and turbos. And where A and B would usually be, we have start and select. And start is now reset. Also, the thumbstick is just a piece of plastic, there's no Z button, and L and R are replaced with all the hookups and switches. So it's actually not the same layout as the Nintendo 64. I actually have a boxed version of this thing. And in true bootleg fashion, it's covered with copyright images that have nothing to do with anything on this console. Look, they actually thought that the terrible Scooby-Doo movie would help sell this. So besides the game, the box also includes AV cables, a power cord, a gun that plugs into the top of the controller, and this freaky fusion of a Genesis and Nintendo 64 controller for the second player. That is, if you can find someone else to play this piece of crap with you. What happens when you turn it on depends on what version you have, since anyone can take one of these cases and stuff whatever the hell they want on it, but you'll always see a menu that offers an insane amount of games. 76,000 games, yeah right. They took maybe 25 games and renamed them about 4,000 times. So it's really pointless to talk about the included games, since they're all just regular NES and Famicom games crammed in like sardines. But they do squeeze in a couple of classic titles, like Super Mario Bros., Contra, Tetris, some Donkey Kong games, a weird magic carpet shooter that's insanely hard to play. Overall, it's a fairly decent collection that promises a lot of fun if you buy it. Which you don't, because come on! Why would you want to play these games you can get anywhere on a cheap bootleg? Just go to the Wii store and buy them for like $5, play them in high definition. You'll get more enjoyment out of them, feel better about yourself, support the people who actually made these. But if that doesn't convince you, then how about the fact that these barely work? I own 3 different consoles, and each of them is broken in one way or another. One likes to reset in the middle of the game, one's too dark and I can barely see what's going on, and one's start button is broken so I can't even access any of the games. These things have the integrity of a spaghetti noodle. And with all the grief gamers already put their controllers through, do you really want your entire console to be rendered useless if you hold down the A button too long? So no, buy the real thing, not these cheap knockoffs. And I've saved the best for last. You see, I'm convinced that one of these companies saw one of these being sold and said, hey, if we can make a few bucks off of ripping off one Nintendo design, imagine how much we can make with several!
I don't know what he was smoking either, but it was that thinking that brought us these.
First, the Dream Gear 72-in-1. What the hell am I even looking at? I mean, a gun? A fishing reel? How many add-ons do they think they needed? I mean, did they not have a budget for a steering wheel? If you're gonna put this much crap on a controller and make it hard for me to even hold it, then go all the way, guys! Oh, but you gotta love this. You see, most of these consoles run on batteries, usually double or triple A's, but some of them do have AC adapters. But with this, there's no battery compartment, so you have no choice but to use a cord. Yeah, isn't the most important part of these TV games to be able to take them with you when you travel? And of course the games are crap. You have your racing games, your puzzle games, your stupid rip-offs of popular games, everything we've covered so far. But it does have some gun and fishing games, so let's quickly look at those.
Barroom Shootout.
Okay, the intro screen is admittedly kind of cool, though it reminds me of the Dirty Harry NES game. Wait, a story? We've received a news... No, okay, sir, we found them there. I was reading that! What do you want me to do? So despite being probably the best looking and most detailed game on any of these consoles, it's stupidly easy. Just keep shooting your gun and nothing can fire back. Though what's pretty cool is that the console has a rumble feature, and every time you pull the trigger, the gun vibrates. Doesn't matter if you're playing a game or not, it just vibrates. Now let's try Hunter. Gee, you're in a forest, you have a hunting dog that sniffs the area, then jumps behind the tall grass, ducks come out and you shoot them, and if you miss one, the dog comes out and laughs at you. Obviously, they're ripping off Hogan's Alley. Then there's Shoot UFO, which is just clay shooter. Deer stalking you'd think was a gun game, but no, the one game that would make the most sense to use a gun, you use the controller buttons instead. So let's try this fishing game. Let's see, freedom, I guess, pond, fine, morning, I don't care. Geez, if I knew I needed to do all this, I'd just go fishing for real, get some fresh air. And after all that, you're lucky if the thing even works. You can twirl it until the cows come home, but all you'll get most of the time is a slight twitch. It might just be my copy, but only rarely have I gotten it to function. You don't even need to use it, since tapping the button works even better. And there's only 2 fishing games on this entire console, so in the end, it's just as useless as a Wii Sports attachment. The Power Joy. Well, they went back to the Nintendo 64 design, but this one at least runs on batteries, and it doesn't have that stupid fishing attachment. So on this one, nearly the entire console is dedicated to gun games. There's a bunch of obvious Duck Hunt and Hogan's Alley clones, a Tetris knockoff, a Galaga game, and a top-down racer. So I'll give it credit that it's more dedicated to what it's designed for than these other systems are, but still, between Duck Hunt and Shoot Copters, I'll take the one with the laughing dog. And finally, we have the Max Play. It has the same basic design as the Power Joy, but a lot more games. 85 more to be exact. But what's weird about this game list is that it's like it took a little of each of the other consoles we've seen to create the ultimate bootlegging experience. I mean, there's the racing games, the puzzle games, the shooter games, and the sports games, but there's also a bunch of texture and sprite-swapped NES and Famicom games. Like there's Let Loose, which is Popeye, Jump and Journey, which is Mario Bros, Space 2050, which is Duck Hunt, and... You know what? I'm just gonna show you the other games and let you guess what they are. Like, just shout the first thing that comes to mind when you see them. Oh, but the ultimate thing about this console, the thing that makes it tower above the rest, is that you can actually play cartridge games on it. Yeah, if you have an original Famicom game on hand, you can plug it into the back and it works. Okay, the audio and video aren't exactly the best, but you don't know how good it feels to have the option to play a game I actually purchased and not have to deal with the subpar programming from these lazy developers.
Now here's the big question I'm sure everyone's wondering. If this console has a gun and can play Famicom games, does that also mean it can play regular shooting games? Well...
No, we are not doing that again. No. Because no matter what level of effort went into each one of these, they all still have one very noticeable thing in common. They're all horrible! With terrible graphics, eye-raping color schemes, monotonous soundtracks, sprites and layouts that make no sense, incredibly fragile and awkward designs, buttons that do nothing or are inconsistent from game to game, obvious rip-offs, reusing the same titles over and over again between systems, an abundance of genres no one cares about, games that are too easy, games that are too hard, games you have no idea what you're doing, and just the overall lack of any creativity or focus, there's not a single area where these consoles score even 1 point. They're all just a collection of unfocused, poorly made titles that don't know if they want to appeal to kids, adults, or sadomasochists looking for a new form of torture. Also, according to what data I could scrape up on all of these, most of them were released between 2003 and 2006. Nobody was gonna buy these! Nobody cared. We were wondering why they put voice acting in Super Mario Sunshine. We were watching trailers for Halo 3, wondering how epic that was gonna be. 2006 is the year that brought us my favorite game console of all time, the Xbox 360. And you know what the tagline for that was? More. More. Not less. These were obsolete before they were even conceived. Even if they were released during the 8-bit era, when the graphics like these would actually fit in, they'd still fall flat on their face. There's no soul, no purpose, no vision as to what they wanted to accomplish. Even if a kid did pick up one of these, they'd forget it as soon as they saw a real gaming system made by people who cared enough to give us games that would stand the test of time. None of these games could hold your attention for more than a minute, none were made with any intention of entertaining, and none are redeemable in any way. They're the worst things I will ever play, and this is the last time I will ever turn these on. But I guess there is one thing we can take comfort in. I mean, that was the first and last generation of bootleg consoles. They never got past the 8-bit era, and they never set their sights on the 16-bit market.
these will do. I see. Just a little more hatred to go.